All right. Welcome to the Saturday morning check-in. So today I decided to do something a little bit different due to the fact that this past week was interesting and I came across so many charts that I wanted to present to you guys and share with you some concerns that we all should have. Because outside of the global interest rate cuts that are taking place, CPI figures are trending upwards. So it's like they're cutting in a recessionary type of response while the primary problem that they're supposed to be cutting for is still going upward. And that's the bogus CPI figures that even that they're using. They're having problems controlling that. So anyway, I have maybe 10, 12 tabs open. A lot of them are just graphs to just highlight how the stats and the figures are problematic. And therefore we are literally living in the monetary twilight zone. And based upon all the things I'm hearing from a lot of experts in this field, this can't end well. And that's why with gold and silver in particular, relatively being stagnant because all the attention's on the digital side. I just want to put out a reminder to take advantage of the manipulation to continue to get your weight up and to just find some enjoyment amongst all this craziness because 2025 will be very interesting. And we're going to see how this incoming president will respond. But one thing I can pretty much guarantee is it's just going to be more currency. So anyway, looking forward to sharing my 2 cents on some things. Welcome. If you're new, make sure you guys leave a comment down below, share your thoughts, ideas, suggestions. What are you paying attention to? What concerns you? What excites you? All that good spiel there. And I definitely do get a chance to read through them and share my 2 cents on some things. I just want to check in and yeah, just vibe out with my people real quick. So as always, I want to do some maintenance and then get into the tabs. I have to do a better job of getting through all these tabs here just because I got too many here that I don't want to leave out because if I leave some out, that kind of ruins the whole piece that I'm trying to put together here. Literally, we're experiencing a crisis within a crisis. And so we're witnessing a recessionary response. But then again, you look at Joe Biden's Twitter or X account, this is the greatest economy that the world has seen. And yeah, so all that good stuff like that. Then you got the Doge team out here talking about what kind of cuts they're going to make and how much they're going to do this and do that. I'm thinking like they're addressing all the symptoms, but not touching the problem. And that's the part where was like, whoa, come on now. The problem is the central banking concept with fractional reserve lending and all the other stuff that makes up this illusionary world that has been created for us, i.e., the financial matrix. And yeah, it's disgusting to me to see the fact that people are so excited about the trivial, not necessarily trivial, but the smaller things and not really zooming out and looking at the historical things that has ruined this country. So we're gonna get to that and a couple other things. So good morning, man. Good morning. I'm excited, man. And so let's jump right into it. I also have to make sure that I try to stay on pace. So I got to get better. Pray for your boy that I get better at being able to stay on track and not get caught up in my tangents and my rants because it's literally is after I click the button to come on, then my thoughts start really, I get new thoughts and new thoughts on top of all the stuff that I try to make sure I stick to. Okay. Anyway, it's going to be a good morning. Okay. Let's get into it, man. Right here on the screen, as you guys can see, I have colonialsmetalsgroup.com/RTD. My partners here in the channel, and they have been a blessing to a lot of people that have decided to diversify outside of the traditional 60-40 split by doing something unique in a sense. And so you can take possession of gold and silver in a self-directed IRA, diversify yourself so that you're not stuck solely in an overly inflated bubble economy of a system. And so if and when things do come correcting, whatever you want to call it, you'll have something tangible and real in your possession that belongs to you. And the best way to do that is a self-directed IRA amongst physical and everything else. But if you're interested, feel free, fill out this form here and you'll get this downloadable book here. And then the professionals at Colonials Metals Group will contact you, ask questions, get your thoughts answered, and just find out if this is something that will be viable for you. So if you're interested, click the link in the description, colonialsmetalsgroup.com/RTD. And also there's a number I'm gonna put on the screen right here so you can call them and speak to the professionals. Just put it in their hands. You do the math and see what adds up for you and go from there. So check them out if you guys are interested. All right. And then next, I want to continue to remind people of the importance of getting physical. Let's get physical, people. And once again, gold backs are just one of many ways that you can do that. And it's the most affordable on top of the premium because this is a product and a service. But what is most valuable about this is the intrinsic value of 24 karat gold infused within these polymer notes here that retains value. This is all about wealth preservation. These are small tools for people, preferably those that might be new. If you're a vet, if you've been in the game for a while, then this may not be for you. But if you're a newbie and you want something affordable, on this page here are some options all the way from 260, 64, up to above right over here at $50 for these notes here, which you definitely will protect the fat version. And then the price appreciation as the currency is destroyed, you can also reap the benefits of that. So if you guys are interested, it's simple. Just go to buygoldknows.com or click the link in the description and you will be able to grab you some. So as you can see here, buygoldknows.com, check them out and yeah, get your thug thizzle on if you guys like. So just want to present that to you guys. And then last, for those who are interested in actually getting involved in the silver game, and so you have a chance to become your own dealer. And so on this page right here is the silver team page where a lot of the community members, as well as those who might be new, are able to shop and actually acquire some of these items on the page here. And so if you are a silver stacker, gold stacker, or whatever, here's an opportunity for you to get your own store and then share it with your family and friends. So that means you have to become a part of the Quicksilver team, i.e. the silver team. So if you guys are interested and want to find out more information, a good way to do that would be to actually get a sample. And so on the screen here, as you can see, as I zoom in here, if you guys are interested, if you want to find out and get a free, you can do that. And so click the link in the description, fill out your information. They'll send you a free gram of silver. And then you get some paperwork with it to find out if this opportunity is something for you. And this is more for the entrepreneurial minded. And so if you're a person that loves to outreach and love to just connect with people and want to be a blessing in the form of helping people get silver, consider joining the silver team, get your silver here, and then we go on from there. So just a little something for my people who want to help other people get their weight up. Okay, so let's get right into it, man. This past week, we had, let me just go, I'm gonna just real quickly give you a glance at some of the headlines and some of the graphs that caught my attention that really should make us wonder. The sense of urgency that all the central banks have to cut in the midst of all their economies not doing well. So it's hard to actually lie with these figures now because people can still feel the pinch. When you look at unemployment numbers ticking up, just look at all the indicators. It's hard to deny. And so let me just share something with you here. So let's get into it, man. So on the screen, here's a headline. Traders add to bets the Fed will keep cutting rates next year. So we've already witnessed an extremely fast pace at cutting, and they're projected to cut more into Trump's term on top of everything else that's happening. And so Trump would definitely love that because it'll play into that illusionary make America great again narrative that he loves to use. So there's something to keep an eye on because once again, he's going to be calling for cuts for easing at the same time the price of everything in reference to CPI figures are still trending up. And that's that second wave. And so here we have the fact that all central banks, damn near, have made some cuts over the last couple of quarters, and their economies are in the same boat. Their CPI figures aren't no any better. And so it's just a matter of time before literally they cut down to historical lows, i.e., look at all this. This is historical lows from a health situation that they're all decided to act the same way and go up incrementally to the point where they peaked out above my head. And then within a very short period of time, was it less than 24 months, they all came crumbling down right now. And that's what we're witnessing. And they didn't stop the monster. They didn't control, they didn't get back to their target of 2% because they can't, but they're cutting. So this is a recessionary response. And we're supposed to have a healthy economy. And then next, Tavi Costa, I mentioned this before about literally, according to him, if I'm not mistaken, we are right here. This part right here where we're about to probably start touching that second wave. And this wave, as you can see, goes way above my head to the point where if this is true based upon previous waves and referring to the 70s, then Trump is going to have a heck of incoming presidential second term, because how do you stop this wave at the same time they're cutting rates? And you better believe Trump is going to be calling for more easing, which in and of itself is expansion of the monetary base. And so I got a couple more here, so we're going to get into it. Then we got the PPI figures here, things that's trending upward as always. But yeah, so it's never a dull moment, but let's get back to the beginning. So here we go on the screen here. I just want to share some thoughts about this because this is the first time human history during the modern era in a digital world predominantly ran by algorithms and all types of software trading and very few hand interaction in all of these markets and economies and financial sectors, that the central bank is literally trying to control things that's beyond their control. The markets is determining what is really happening now. And due to the debt saturation of every nation on the planet, it's hard to keep everything in sync. So they're trying to do the best they can. And one reason you can tell that things are getting out of hand, let me just backtrack real quick, is if you go and look at the 10-year treasury, look at what is happening now. So this is the 1 year, and literally we're starting to see some very interesting events here. And so after Donald Trump's next initial inauguration or whatever announcement of winning, things peaked out at around four and a half almost. And then all of a sudden it started coming down because all the optimistic talk. But then all of a sudden around the 6th of this month, something changed in the markets where we can see here the overall sentiment. And when it comes to 10-year treasuries is not all that favorable. And so literally what you see here is an uptick, meaning people are deciding to get out of U.S. liabilities, as I call them. And so therefore there has to be a buyer. If not, this is going to continue to trend upward. And this is a problem. At the same time that the yield curve has officially, therefore, when that happens, recessions officially hit. So these are some things that clearly the Fed is more concerned with, I'm sure, than beyond their own measures. Because once again, it's all they're always lagging in their responses. Okay. So real quick, let me share some information with you, man. This has caught my attention. It says traders of interest rate futures that settle the Federal Reserve policy rate added to the bets the central bank rate will cut borrowing costs next week and follow up next year with further reduction. So this is what people are placing bets on. The fact that you can actually bet on futures as to what will happen just goes to show that everything has been turned into a product. After economic show, weekly claims for unemployment insurance unexpectedly rose. So we have claims unemployment is rising. And so literally those are all the typical atmospheric conditions for a recession already. Just need the figure to be manipulated. So there's traders now see probability of a rate cut next week at 97%, up from 94% before the report, and are pricing in another 3/4 point rate cuts in 2025. So that'll get us down to maybe 3.5-ish, give or take, if I'm correct. So once again, these are just all expectations based upon the traders, based upon what they foresee coming. And this is not really anything the Fed is using for data, I hope. But anyway, it's good to say that because we're all interconnected, we're all in this game together. Every country that has a central bank literally has been fleet for almost a century now for a majority of countries. And here we are now coming down the home stretch of this rebranding, of this reset that we're in. And the question is, if everybody's cutting, and outside of, I think, Germany and a couple of EU countries, they have openly admitted already that they're in recessions. And so what's the excuse for the rest of the countries just following suit unless they too are in recessions? And once again, you won't see it across your headlines. The U.S. is in a recession. No, because then the markets will come crashing down. And what I find interesting about all this is that this is the economy that Trump is going to inherit. Granted, he was a part of this monetary expansion from the health situation where his signatures went on paychecks and PPP loans and everything else that pretty much got this started. So he's not the innocent man out of all this. And so you better believe he's not going to take the fall for something that was handed to him. So he's going to double down. Hence the idea of crypto being important. So literally within the first 30 days of his presidency, he's already talking big and bad around the problems. And I'm going to share a quote with you that shows you how he's talking around the problems. But he's going to come out with some things to try to divert your attention off of the problem and the symptoms. And it's going to have everything to do with digital assets, aka crypto. But your boy Trump is going to be the crypto king. Went from debt loving to crypto king. They're one and the same because technically debt liabilities on balance sheets and crypto is ones and zeros on a ledger somewhere. So there's nothing real, tangible about either one of them other than perception and the ability for there to be a receiver on the end of that trade. Perfect. Okay, so cutting every nation, for the most part, every important nation. Why are they cutting? Obviously, recessionary type of conditions. And even for this particular graphic here, this is what was written above it, which really caught my attention. This is from Global Markets Investor, and this is what they said. It said, central banks are cutting rates as if global recession is here. Like this, I mentioned, this is a response that you would have after something in the environment is just problematic and they need to respond. So they're responding to something that they haven't admitted to. We can see, we can feel it, but nothing's really wrong yet. That's the thing. This is like just formalities in a sense because nothing's really wrong because the markets are still open, SP at an all-time high. Everybody, for the most part, in their portfolios are feeling wealthier than ever. So everything is good technically, but behind the scenes, something is different. And by the time it makes itself to the surface, that's when all heck gonna break loose. But it says Bank of Canada cut rates 50% on Wednesday for the second consecutive time. European Central Bank and Swiss National Bank slash rates 1.25% on Thursday. Fed is to cut 1/4 this coming Wednesday. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out, but it's going to be interesting, people. And we're all going to be going along for this ride. So here on the screen, the recent figures that came out shows that things aren't promising. Let me just zoom in. The lowest they were able to get down in this fight against inflation looks like about 2.4 in September. And that was something to celebrate. I remember everybody talking about, oh yeah, it's trending down, but then all of a sudden it didn't. Then we got 2.6, 2.7. And then it's good to say December's going to be 2.8, 2.9. And then this is just their bogus CPI figures. And then you got the year over year, and that's 3.3. So it's like, okay, what's going on over here? Something is not right. It's trending upward. And this goes back to what I mentioned about Tavi Costa and his reports. This could be like that turning point. Is this a turning point, people? This is what I want to put out there to you guys. Let me know if this is a turning point, because if they got down here, and this is the 70s, mind you, if they were able to get it down here, and I'm sure in 1970, I wasn't around then, but I can imagine people was like, oh, the market headlines was like, everything is looking fine. They got everything controlled. The economy was going to recover, it's going to grow. And then all of a sudden, the next month, they're like, oh, it's back up to, then, ooh, whoa, something's wrong here. And then you see here what happens when things get really out of control. With just that line gets out of control. But my point is, I would like to hope and pray. So I'm not going to sit up here and I'm cheering for this. I don't want this. I didn't want none of this. I didn't want the central bankers to take over our country and give us debt IOU nothings and siphon the wealth of our country, leaving us with absolutely nothing. I didn't want this. But since I got to participate in it, I might as well narrate it. And then, of course, tell people the best way to do it is protect yourself. Literally, you have to have the kryptonite to Superman's weakness, which, of course, is precious metals, so sound money, something that you can touch and feel just from a financial standpoint. Because I know some people are like, oh, for your salvation, for your eternity, you need Christ. But in the here and now, in the natural, prudent thing to do would be to be a good steward of everything you've been entrusted with by providing yourself insurance on that destruction, which is metal. And then speculation for price appreciation comes through crypto and anything else, stocks and micro strategy, soft stock and stuff like that. So anyway, okay, keep it. So here we have PPI came out this week as well. Now, once again, this could be that second wave. PPI inflation rises to the highest since February of 2023. I'm not hoping for this. I don't want this. But then again, based upon their actions and their responses to this monetary experiment that we're part of, this is all debt and fiat currency based. This is what we're witnessing, the results of too much fiat currency in the hands of people who are literally abusing the system. And you factor in the concept of usury, excessive interest charged on the average person, therefore further indebting them, creating debt slaves. So once again, we'll have to wait and see, but this is what's on the horizon heading into 2025. And then let's keep it moving. So here's something that's worth mentioning, and this is from Macro Edge. And as you can see here, gives a little hint at the current state of the 10-year, the 3-month, I would say, government liabilities that they sell as assets that the world no longer really truly sees in assets, because just look at the price of gold. It ain't shooting through the moon, but it's made enough of a jump over the last year to tell us that there's an alternative out there that people can use to just store their value in. You don't necessarily need to have yield on something that's meant to preserve. You just let everything around it come crumbling down. But anyway, it says the 10-year, 3-year curve jumped to plus 0.04 today. Its first positive print in 700 days. Think about that. 80 days. And just five. So with that being the case, that's the 3-month and a 10-year. They're starting to, which means the short term is more important than the long term. Ain't even long. It's only 10 years. And when that happens, I think is when it happens, that's when, unfortunately, according to this visual aid here, bad things usually follow. So whenever it crosses this, let me zoom in some more. Whenever it crosses, we can go back here. So 1980, when we had this crossing over of the 0 point into positive territory, we were in a big red bar, which is a problem. Then you got here, we crossed over in the 1990s, hovered around here, we crossed over, went back up. We had a little light red there. That's a problem. And then the same thing here, 2000s. Everybody, for the most part, remember 2000s. We got down into some very abnormal territory. It crossed over, and we had a little red bar, and then so forth. So here we are today. This is what it looks like as of right now. Right above my head. It's above my head. See this line right here? This is where we get it into. So the question is, what comes over here? This is going to be something that we'll have to wait and see. And once again, I personally wouldn't mind if they were able to continue to manipulate the system and kick this can down the road further. Because at this point, as it says here, 700 days. That's been a long time, 2 years or so, of them able to lie to the people, fudge the numbers, pad the books. And of course, the uber billionaires have gotten richer since then. But hopefully you guys, as a result of being monetarily astute, have also been able to protect and preserve yourselves as well because of the information you receive, knowing that if you're being lied to by the mainstream media, that buys you time if you're awake and aware, because it allows you to take your income or whatever it is that you receive and put it to work for you in sectors and in things, preferably assets, that will be recipients of this upcoming monetary spigot that will be cut on. They're cutting it on now. With every rate cut is the equivalent of more, where it makes the debt burden lighter, therefore incentivizes people to borrow. And when people are incentivized to borrow, the speculators, the people at the top of the food pyramid or the monetary pyramid, they are the ones that maneuver things for their interests first, and they are the ones that get richer. And so I think for the average person that's on the bottom of all this, mimic, copy what they do a little bit. You'll be better off than just sitting still and listening to the mainstream media telling people to go into the stock market. You can't miss out on NVIDIA and all the Magnificent Seven. I got charts. I don't have them here, but charts show you that stock market is the most overvalued in modern history or history in general since the stock market has been created. Like the Dow Jones was like 1890 or something like that, but it has never been this overvalued from the price to earnings ratio, meaning that for the average price, their earnings nowhere near that price. So it's abnormally skewed, letting us know that manipulation has made the uber wealthy shareholders a lot of currency where the average Joe is being lured in because of the price of these equity, these stocks that are not real. Okay, so you know that. All right, so I was looking at Peter's shift because Peter has been calling things for quite some time. He hasn't been right yet, but he looks more and more like he might be right. And here's something that really caught my attention is him just talking about how the CPI figures, even though they tell us one thing, if you zoom out and look at the entire length of the CPI calculations from 13 to today, it shows that life has become 300 times more expensive for everybody in every way of life. It says here, the CPI started at 19 at 10. So what does it mean? Here's a chart that shows just back to the 50s. So this is the U.S. Consumer Price Index chart that is utilized by the Federal Reserve, one amongst many. But as you can see here, farthest it goes back is it was at 3.6. And so clearly this is a continual chart that just continues to climb based upon the start of the CPI figures, which was when the Federal Reserve was first created. And when it was created in December of 1913, that next year, 1914, when they opened their doors up for business, it was at 10. And so in 19, it was 23.6. That's a doubling within that 40 years, give or take. And then you look at today, as of today, it is 3. So life has become that much more expensive times 13, times 315. And then he goes into what that looks like. So this is where he gets into my prior post incorrectly read that it started at 100. Today it stands at 317. That implies a 32-fold increase in prices. So below are a dozen examples of how much CPI understates inflation's impact on consumer prices. Of the items on my list, only 3 rose by anything close to the official estimate. However, as a result of the Boskin Commission's recommendations, the CPI was radically changed, and since then, the underestimation of inflation has been much greater. So here's some very concerning price averages over the last 111 years. The average rent in 19 was $12 per month. Today, it's $1,600. That's a 133 times increase. In 1913, a visitor to the doctor cost $2. Today, it's $170. That's 85% increase. 1913, a cup of coffee, 5 cents. Today it's $3. That's 60 times. 1913, a pair of shoes costs $4. Today it costs $150, depending on what kind you're getting. That's 50% increase. 19, a loaf of bread costs 6 cents. Today it's $3. A car costs $550. Today, average $48,000. That's 87 increase. On and on. So I won't bore you with that, but go check out Peter Schiff's X account. You can see more of that. But that's concerning. But then again, to the average Joe, could care less. Most people are literally been conditioned to focus on today and what they can get out of today, not realizing they've been robbed for their entire lives and think that it can get better beyond this point. And no man, no party, no new government agency can make anything better because the underlying problem is the currency itself. And that's one thing that Donald Trump or J.D. Vance will not be saying out of their mouths. Okay, keep it moving. So just looking at this right here lets you know that this is by design. This is the original intentions of the Federal Reserve System. And this ultimately equals the siphoning of true value through our currency that people are no longer able to secure because the value has been siphoned off at the top where people at the bottom get the crumbs and you are forced to maneuver with your leftovers after taxations of all types. And so literally it just requires that much more hours spent working and or speculation for people to try to get ahead. And that's the system that we're in. And it's not going to change in this life. And the fact that people think that somehow making America great again, like what does that include? And that whole propaganda tool, it worked because as a part of, and this is why I love pointing out this book here, Propaganda. When you read this book called Propaganda, you see the government's game plan and how it works every time. And it starts with an idea that is then turned into a movement And then a movement then becomes a part of the psyche because you have people in power and, and influence using that idea and then attaching examples onto it. And then the people start buying into it. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of them also jumping on the bandwagon, using the same exact things. And then on the outside of that, it comes into fruition. But it started with a single idea. Whose idea was it? The idea of Make America Great Again, in my personal opinion, was not Donald Trump's idea. It's a campaign slogan. It originated from his public relations team. Just like Obama ran on change, we need change or change again or whatever he ran on. That didn't originate in his mind. There's puppets, there's people who do what they're told. They got people in high places, and I call them the principalities and powers that are doing the orchestrating. Those are the brainiacs. Those are the PhD Keynesians that work for the special interest groups and those foreign entities in Israel and in Switzerland. So anyway, I can go on. Keep it moving. And let's not forget, we got to talk about the M2. So here on the screen is the money supply across the globe, rates, because that's part of operations mostly. But then again, you have some countries where because of their distressed economies, they're forced to try to address things. And the only way that they can address things, according to the current model, is to borrow more. And therefore, the central banks monetize more. So here we got Canada. As we can see here, their currency has gone up. The euro going up. France is somewhat, it went up, but it's stagnant. And these are all some older figures, according to what they report. Then we got Germany is going up. Then we got South Korea. We got Japan. We know about Japan. United Kingdom. Look at the UK. UK, my man Mario's territory. Them boys is about to fall off the map. That damn island gonna sink. Not literally, but you get my drift. And then here we got the good old US of A. Look at that. The good old US of A. We ain't stopped. And this is trillions. So in February of this year, it was around 20 trillion of M2, with that includes M1, 2. That was base currency, checks, deposit, money market, stuff like that. And then here we are today in October. Last we checked, 21. So that's an extra trillion plus that came into existence in a variety of forms, mostly in ones and zeros on ledgers. And then you got all the other countries out here, the emerging markets. So it's interesting time, man. Interesting time. But then again, we know what time it is. Okay, keep it moving. So just look at a little bit. Here is something that talks about more. The labor market is cracking. New jobs posted on Indeed failed 38% year over year last week and now stands at the lowest level since August of 2020. And of course, 2020 is a good measuring point for everything because that's the year that our world was turned inside out. Job postings have dropped for nearly 3 years straight and are now down 49% since February. Here's just a little visual aid to show how this is playing out. And as we can see here above my head, it's trending down lower in comparison to what we experienced back in 2020. And this hump that we're witnessing over here, surge, this is all the currency that was brought to existence that led to that artificial employment boom because people were consuming more because they had checks to spend. The checks drained officially probably at the end of 22, and literally they start laying off bit by bit, 22, 23. And of course, I've been documenting in real time every single layoff that's happening here in Metro Detroit area with the big three and rebranding and all that stuff. So that's just another indicator as to what is problematic with the fact that central banks are cutting, and those are recessionary responses. When unemployment picks up, that's just another reason to cut. But then again, they're not using that as an excuse right now. Okay, let's talk about the banks real quick. So banks still facing $3 billion in unrealized losses. And what's good about this is that we see the losses are coming down. So this going up shows that by the Fed cutting rates, it started to alleviate some of the pressure on these bank losses. They're starting to get back more so towards the positive territory. A long way to go still, as you can see above my head, a long way to go, but they're making progress as long as the Fed keeps cutting. So this is another incentive for them to cut because banks are now able to have some of those liabilities that they have turn into assets again, like they were when it's above the 0 point, when they actually are able to earn off those investments rather than lose for holding them to the maturity. And so the cutting benefits the banks right now. So mind you, if the central banks, Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell's in the operation, their primary goal for existing is to make the big banks profitable, then it's in their best interest to keep cutting as well. So if they end up cutting like it was projected earlier on, was it 75 basis points in 2025 that I put it out to about 3.25? You're going to see the losses continue to minimize for the banks. And that's a good thing, meaning that can hopefully hold off a banking crisis that we don't want to have because within that bank lies everyone's savings and checkings and deposits on average. So banks get a little bit more of a lifeline. But we talk about losses. The Federal Reserve is also piling up losses. So here on the chart, we got Federal Reserve yearly Treasury payments. The Federal Reserve is supposed to return back to the Treasury any proceeds it earns from its operations after it covers its operations costs. lost. As you can see on this chart here, since 21, they have been in the negative to the tune of, as of now, $213 billion, meaning that they're in the hole. But when it comes to the central bank, they're being bankers. They don't necessarily have to, there's nothing there. So it's not like they're really losing anything. It's just the fact that the Treasury is not getting any compensation for having sold out our nation 111 years ago, unrealized profits that our government's not getting. The central bank is able to just continue to conduct operations as normal because they can just continue to function regardless, because that's just how they do it. You can see liabilities and capital, earnings, remittances due to the U.S. Treasury. So literally, since 2011, they were always returning billions back to the United States government as a way of saying, thank you for allowing us to siphon your country and enslave your people as a private entity. So it says in 2020, they gave back, the most they ever gave back in remittance payments was 4.6 billion-ish. And ever since 2022, when they start hiking and the bank losses started to go negative, because the liabilities they're holding on to, the value of them were well below par, meaning that they were taking losses on those things. So if they matured at that moment, there will be some losses. And so therefore, the assets they're holding on to, mortgage-backed securities and treasuries as well, they're not able to earn interest off of those things. So they themselves are taking losses. And as you can see behind me here, this thing is just going down and down. And so that's another incentive for them to come in and to cut rates so they can get back in the positive. And I was doing a little reading up on this because I'm like, man, like this is something new to me outside of knowing about it. So I educated myself on it. And you just go to the St. Louis Fed on the economy and it gives you, it says Fed remittances, whatever Treasury explaining. So if you go to the very top, it gives you a nice little lengthy explanation as to what's going on here. So it gives you all the charts here. They explain to you how they're stealing from the American people in a sense. The Fed's remittances to the Treasury explaining the deferred asset. So they call it an asset. Currency in the form of debt, in the form of treasuries that are underwater. That's, once again, in this financial world that we're in, it's considered an asset. There's nothing there. It can't be repaid. They're just going to roll it over or let it roll off their balance sheet. But anyway, it says the Fed's negative liability or deferred asset. So it goes on to explain it. And what it says here, everything that they're in the negative for now is a deferred asset, meaning that once things correct as far as interest rates come back down and those instruments become more positive, the Fed will make up the difference and give back to the Treasury what they were lacking during that time period of them not being able to give remittances. So it's called a deferred asset, meaning that those funds will be made whole when everything corrects. Once again, I'm not quite sure how things are going to correct, but we'll see. Okay, just a little learning lesson for those. And then here's something as well. Trump advisors seek to shrink or eliminate bank regulators. So Trump advisors, mind you, who is advisors? Advisors are the banks themselves. It's the Goldman Sachs board. It's the BlackRock people. It's Larry Fink's homies. It's all the people that are overseeing this reset. So if Trump advisors are giving him instructions on what he should do, then that lets me know that they're doing what's in their best interest and they're disguising it as this helps the American people. This is a way to make America great again. But if the same advisors are the people who are part of the problem, then who's winning? Okay, let you answer that one. So the idea of eliminating certain parts or the FDIC rolling things over, minimizing, shrinking the banks, once again, okay, that sounds good. But then again, that's a symptom to an underlying problem that's still not being addressed, because a good reason the FDIC can probably go away now is because it's already insolvent. We know that the FDIC doesn't really have any insurance funds to cover all deposits to the tune of 0.01% of all 20 trillion or whatever that's in their coffers and all their financial products and everything that's FDIC insured to up to that 250,000. It's not enough there to cover it. So what better way to make it seem as if we're going to clean up the banking sector and regulate things better? We're going to minimize this and get rid of this department and cut them and fire them. Okay, that's easy now because the game's up. So what's the option, Trump? Oh, let me guess. A stable coin. What better way to end something than create something new as a solution, which was already predetermined beforehand? Hegelian dialect? Anybody? Anyway, so once again, everything that comes from Trump's advisory team, it's a part of the swamp. His entire team is swamp-based. And what I saw the other day during watching the All In podcast, they were talking about how this administration is the most friendly towards having the business sector come in and help oversee this bankruptcy. So literally think about this. If Trump is the king of debt, he's the king of bankruptcies. What better person to oversee bankruptcy other than the person who knows it best? And then he's able to sell the American people as an actor to tell them he's going to make America great again. But then again, not really address the underlying problem. And the problem is the Federal Reserve. So let me get to my point of a tweet that he put out yesterday. And of course, me being a skeptic, I don't trust him as much as I know him, and I don't know him. So that means I don't trust him. And I'm not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe on some him getting on stage and telling people what they want to hear and get in the audience and be like, oh yeah, he's going to. Okay. So let me just share with you real quick a tweet. Let me see, when was it? Man, let me see. Can I find it? Man, I better find it. Okay, so I did put it on the Telegram for those who are on Telegram. So I encourage you. I do more stuff there than anywhere, but I'll share a screenshot. Give me 1 second here. I have to download it, then upload it, and then let me share this with you because this is to me just another one of them talking points where people will read it, and if you're like a diehard Trump fan, then I can see how, oh man, this is gonna be good. He's really sticking it to him. Oh man, this is gonna be over the top what he's doing with this one. Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Let me grab it because it's not working. Okay, so let me bear with me here. It'll be worth your time. I promise. Let me grab it here. Because when I see him speak or I see something he posts, I automatically think, what is the catch here? There's always a catch with this guy. Mind you, he's a professional actor too. Don't forget that this guy is literally he's a professional. He doesn't get the big bucks just for fun. But here's a tweet he put out yesterday. I think it's on True Social. But it says here, real Donald Trump, this was yesterday, got 12.4 million views. It says the Republican Party will use its best efforts to eliminate daylight savings time, which has a small but strong constituency, but shouldn't. Daylight savings time is inconvenient and very costly to our nation. Ignore that blunder, that blooper. But when I read this, I'm thinking like, okay, daylight savings time, that sounds interesting. Once again, what does it have to do really with me or us today? Not sure. But once again, it sounds good. Daylight savings time, oh, it costs us more than it helps us. But he says daylight savings time is inconvenient and very costly. So I'm thinking like inconvenient and costly. Those are two words that stood out to me. I would think that like once again, this is a symptom of a bigger problem. Daylight savings time is costly. What is inconvenient is the fact that the Federal Reserve, and he's not talking about the third word was eliminating, inconvenient, and costly. Those three words stood out. Sorry. Eliminating something would be ideal. Let's talk about the Federal Reserve in the sense of like looking out, zooming out, and really seeing what damage was done. And of course, as a part of what damage was done, I love to show the consumer dollar chart that I got to pull up on the screen now because it's the right time for it. So like you talk about eliminate something. At what point would this guy, if he was for real, about making America great again? At what point would he deal with this issue here? Because based upon what we work for, our currency, we're losing big time. So you're going to eliminate something. Let's talk about the creator of this instrument that has robbed us. Okay, I don't expect him to. I know he can't. Everybody has limitations. But because he's not talking about this and won't talk about this, that's more of an indication as to why we shouldn't really take everything he says as being something that is going to be doable, because he won't address the underlying problem. And to me, this is more of a problem than a lot of other things. I'm not concerned with daylight savings time as much as I am. I would love to get more purchasing power out of my currency so that the time I spend doing things and I receive compensation in this instrument, I get something I can actually use and store value in. I don't expect that, but I'm just being facetious. But my point is, eliminate something. Okay, let's talk about the Federal Reserve. If he was sincere, that'd be a great discussion. I would love to have that one. And then inconvenient. Okay, it is a big inconvenience when you are literally working, saving, investing in something that literally don't belong to you because it's a private instrument that has been used as a contract between our government to tax us so that it funds our government. Then our government don't even require it no more because they run in deficits. So they got a credit card now. It used to be when the dollar was backed by gold, there had to be some checks and balances. You couldn't spend more than you actually produced or brought in tax revenue. But once we went on the solely standard, that was literally the creation of a United States credit card where they can swipe all they want to run deficits. So literally our government's running in a negative. We got our treasury operating in losses and negative. Our governments will operate in a negative. Half of our country, as far as consumer debt, is running in a negative. Do we just live in a negative economy in general? And this is something that will be worth. This is an inconvenience. It is very costly. So he says it's very costly. It is costly. This is costing us time, energy, effort, and skill. By saving these instruments here, we're on the short end of the stick. That's costly. But then again, we know everybody has limitations. I don't expect Donald Trump to come out and say this, that. He's not going to do that. He can't. I understand. But then again, I can. And of course, if you watch this show and all the other alternative media shows that we've been lied to from day one, don't wait for America to be great again because you're going to be waiting a long time because it's not going to happen in this life. I'm confident of that. But in the meantime, what can you do? That's the next part of this. I got a couple more here, but I'm already well over my allotted time. But what can you do? This is where going into 2025, let's talk about, let me just give you some things that come to the top of my mind. 25, because of all the things I laid out before, we can tell we've been lied to. We know that everything is being set up for some type of event. And it's my suspicion that this great economy that we're witnessing, according to Joe Brandon, let me look up Joe Brandon's account. I mentioned it earlier. According to Joe Brandon, let me share something with you. His sentiments. What do you say here? This guy, let me see here. I have to show you this stuff just because I find it funny. This guy, let me see here. I'll give me see if I can find it. His team is really good at putting out stuff, make him look like he's a genius. But everybody know he ain't really there. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I can't find it. But if you go to his account and he had a post talking about his economy is so wonderful. It's the this is that I'm like, huh? He threw off some stats. This economy created 227 jobs in November. Unemployment has been lowest on the over average of 50 years. Like once again, like who all those job losses that are out there, people would really believe that. And this is where I know it's propaganda. I know since taking office, we've helped create 16 million jobs. Our economy has grown more than during any other presidency in this century. This is what's coming out of DC. Now, so I keep saying I know it's propaganda, but come on now. At what point does somebody call this guy and this political charades out for what it is? So, man, anyway, okay, my point, real quick. Going to 20, all this great economy that he's owning, you better believe they're going to flip the script on Donald Trump and they will do their best to probably try to bring this thing down. And then, as in response to that, he's going to juice the markets like never before so that he can then say, we have the greatest economy. Look at your crypto portfolios. Look at your 401ks. He's going to say, look at everything that is a ledger-based counterparty risk instrument and say, oh, look how great it is. Everybody's richer. But then again, all those things are assets on either other people's software, other people's account, your hedge, your broker dealer, your investment portfolio, your money market account, all those things are in other people's coffers and not in your tangible hands. And that's what he won't say. He won't talk about gold and silver. And then as a result of the calamity that will come, he's going to roll out a stable coin collaboration with the Fed, Ripple, XRP, and all the Treasury, the Fed. He's not going to override Biden's executive order for a CBDC. So that's always on the table. And so between now and then, it could be a year, it could be two, who knows? So I'm thinking like, sorry, if I know that they're going to juice the market substantially, then my thought would be you'd be a fool not to look for ways to take advantage of what they're deliberately telling you. Therefore, that leads to speculation. Because once you are in a position of having physical, tangible wealth that you have accumulated that has minimum to no counterparty risk, that will be a escape hatch for yourself, safe haven, insurance policy, whatever you want to call it, to where having a little bit of anything that's real and tangible that you can feel will do better than the majority who have nothing. Because I got some, I don't have it here, but I was looking at the fact that more people now are being incentivized and they're literally contributing more to their 401ks now because of the price appreciation of stocks like never before. And if that's going to continue to go, Trump's going to own that. The S&P 500 going to hit 7,000, 8,000, 10,000, 50,000, 70,000, whatever. And when you look at your screen, oh my goodness. But think about this. Looking at your screen don't mean you're going to get out now and then enjoy that. Looking at your screen mean for the majority of people in retirement portfolios, meaning that, man, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, man, my account could be 1 million, it could be 3 million, it could be 5 million. What currency will that be denominated in? Will it have value? 2, what will the cost of living be? And 3, will we even have a nation the way that it is now? Those are some things that people don't consider about when they consider retirement down the line. We have enough data now to look back and see that based upon life 50 years ago, it's night and day from now and way more costlier. So it's like it's going to double and triple by the future. Anyway, so speculation, once again, just something to consider. I know people out there, man, I'm not touching that stuff. I'm not touching crypto. Okay, but if Trump is telling you that's where they're going, that's if he's telling you that's where the funds are flowing, just for sheer price appreciation so that you can have extra to then spend now. You can't hold on to that in the future. You got to get rid of it now to buy price appreciating assets that you can then pass down to your kids type of stuff. So anyway, opportunities out there like never before, because this is a part of the reset that could be the wealth transfer side. And biblically speaking, I do believe that the wealth of the unrighteous is laid up for the just. So therefore, there's some people that's holding on to things that belong to me. And I believe I'm going to get it in the name of Jesus. All right, people. That's all I wrote. Just wanted to connect this Saturday, share my thoughts, have some fun. And I think I did that. Got everything out, stayed in track as best I could. But anyway, if you found value, hit that thumbs up. Subscribe. All the resources you need are down below. Drop a comment. I'll catch you guys later. Enjoy your Saturday. Shalom.